First contact on Farmer's Field. Sarah Miller knew something was different about that summer morning when her rabbits refused to emerge from their warren. The usually active bunch, who'd faithfully hop out at dawn for feeding, remained huddled underground, their sensitive ears pressed against the earth. Even Mr. Buttons, the boldest of the bunch, wouldn't budge. The morning fog hung thick over her family's farm, unusual for June in Nebraska. Sarah pulled her jacket tighter and squinted through the mist. The cattle were restless, huddled in the far corner of their pasture, and the chickens clucked with unusual intensity. Something had spooked the entire farm. That's when she saw it, a faint purple glow emanating from the wheat field. Her first thought was ball lightning, but this light pulsed with an almost organic rhythm. As she approached, the wheat parted to reveal a metallic pod about the size of a compact car, its surface adorned with symbols that seemed to shift and change when she tried to focus on them. "Dad," she called out, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "You might want to see this." Tom Miller emerged from the barn, wiping engine grease from his hands. He'd been fixing the tractor again, a never-ending battle against entropy that occupied most of his mornings. One look at the purple glow, and the greasy rag dropped from his fingers. "Well," he drawled, "that's certainly not John Deere." Before either could move closer, the pod's surface rippled like mercury. A seam appeared, and with a soft hiss, a panel slid open. Inside, curled in what looked like a nest of crystalline fibers, lay a creature that defied explanation. It resembled a cat, but its fur shimmered with colors that shouldn't exist, shifting between deep violet and midnight blue. Its body was sleek and athletic, roughly the size of a young mountain lion, but with an extra set of retractable appendages folded against its sides. Most striking were its eyes, 3 of them arranged in a triangle pattern, each one containing swirling galaxies of silver and gold. The creature was clearly injured. Its breathing came in shallow gasps, and one of its extra limbs hung at an awkward angle. As Sarah and Tom watched, frozen between fear and fascination, something unexpected happened. The farm's rabbit population, led by Mr. Buttons himself, emerged from their warren en masse. Instead of fleeing from the alien predator, they approached with purpose. Mr. Buttons hopped right up to the pod, nose twitching rapidly as he assessed the situation. Then, to Sarah's amazement, he began thumping his back leg in a complex rhythm. The alien cat's eyes focused on Mr. Buttons, and it responded with a soft trill that seemed to vibrate the air itself. The rabbits, rather than showing fear, began to gather around the pod. Some started digging, creating a gentle slope of earth leading up to the injured creature. "Dad," Sarah whispered, "I think they're trying to help it." Tom Miller had seen many things in his 60 years of farming. Drought, tornado, and once even a circus train derailment that left elephants wandering through his corn. But this was different. This was impossible. This was also, he realized with a growing certainty, exactly what their farm needed. "Well," he said, reaching for his phone, "better call Doc Hansen. Let's see if veterinary school covered extraterrestrial cats." As they waited for the vet, the rabbits orchestrated a remarkable rescue operation. Working together, they created a network of tunnels and supports that allowed them to safely transport the injured alien to a nearby burrow. The creature, despite its obvious predatory nature, submitted to their care with surprising trust. "You know what this reminds me of?" Sarah said, watching the unlikely scene unfold. "Mom's old stories about the Underground Railroad. How people helped each other despite all the risks." Tom nodded, thinking of his late wife and her passion for history. Catherine would have loved this. She always said the best stories are about creatures helping each other when it makes no sense to do so. The purple glow from the pod began to fade, and its surface started to disintegrate, breaking down into a fine powder that the morning breeze carried away. By the time Doc Hansen's truck rumbled up the dirt road, there was no trace of the alien vessel, just a clearing in the wheat, a group of very satisfied-looking rabbits, and the beginning of a story that would change not just the Miller farm, but humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. Little did they know, high above Earth's atmosphere, a much larger ship was already adjusting its course, its sensors locked onto the signal of their escaped specimen. The game of cat and rabbit was about to become much more complicated. The language of whiskers. 3 months after the crash, Doc Hanson's medical journal contained entries that would have gotten him laughed out of any veterinary conference in the world. The alien cat, whom Sarah had named Nova, was defying everything he knew about biology, physics, and the supposed limitations of interspecies communication. "It's not just that Nova's healing," he explained to Tom Miller one evening, watching the creature play an elaborate game of hide-and-seek with the Warren rabbits. "It's how they're all changing. The rabbits' cognitive abilities have increased exponentially. They're problem-solving at levels that should be impossible for lagomorphs." Nova had grown stronger, its iridescent fur now gleaming with health. The extra limbs had healed and revealed themselves to be something between wings and manipulator arms, capable of intricate movements. But most remarkable was the complex society emerging in the warren. The rabbits had reorganized their burrow into what could only be described as a military installation. Mr. Buttons, now sporting a peculiar pattern of darkened fur that looked suspiciously like surgeon's stripes, had established a rotating guard duty. They'd even developed an early warning system using synchronized thumping that could relay messages across the entire farm in seconds. "Look at that," Sarah whispered, pointing to where Nova was teaching younger rabbits how to move silently through tall grass. "They're not just playing. They're training." She wasn't wrong. Every game, every interaction between Nova and the rabbits seemed to have a deeper purpose. The hide-and-seek sessions were actually stealth training. The elaborate tunnel networks were being expanded and reinforced using techniques that would have impressed military engineers. One morning, Tom found Nova and several rabbits in the barn, gathered around his old ham radio equipment. The alien cat had modified the ancient electronics using parts that seemed to materialize from its shimmering fur. The rabbits worked as a coordinated team, following Nova's subtle gestures to assemble something that made Tom's teeth vibrate when they tested it. "They're preparing for something," Doc Hanson said, adjusting his glasses. "Question is, what?" The answer came sooner than anyone expected. Sarah was the first to notice the change in Nova's behavior. The alien cat had taken to spending long hours staring at the night sky, its 3 eyes tracking patterns that human astronomy couldn't explain. The rabbits grew more alert, their training sessions more intense. Then came the dreams. Everyone on the farm started experiencing them. Vivid visions of vast ships and cold laboratories, of beings that saw Earth's species as resources to be harvested and cataloged. Nova was sharing memories, warning them. "They're called the Collectors," Sarah explained over breakfast, dark circles under her eyes from another night of shared visions. "They're like intergalactic big game hunters, but worse. They don't just hunt, they collect, study, and exploit any species they find interesting." Tom nodded grimly. "And Nova?" "A prototype. They were trying to create the perfect infiltration species, something that could adapt to any environment, learn from local life forms, and relay information back. But Nova developed too much empathy, formed real connections with test subjects. When they decided to terminate the project, the escape pod, Tom finished. The farm had become more than a hiding place. It was a resistance cell in waiting. Nova had chosen Earth not just as a refuge, but as a potential ally. Humans, the alien had realized, were unique in the galaxy. While other species specialized and settled into rigid ecological niches, humans and their companion animals had developed remarkable adaptability. That adaptability was about to be tested. One evening, as the sun set behind the cornfields, Nova's modified radio crackled to life. The message it received wasn't in any human language, but the rabbit's instant reaction told everyone what they needed to know. Mr. Buttons assembled his warren warriors, each rabbit now moving with military precision. Nova's eyes glowed with an intensity they hadn't seen since the crash, and a holographic display sprouted from one of its auxiliary limbs, showing a massive ship entering the solar system. "How long?" Tom asked, though he wasn't sure how he expected Nova to answer. The alien cat touched its modified radio with one shimmering paw, and Sarah's phone buzzed. On the screen, in perfect English, appeared a message. 3 days. But we're ready. The collectors don't know about humanity's greatest weapon. Which is? Doc Hansen asked. Nova's 3 eyes seemed to smile, and the next message appeared. You protect what you love, not what you're programmed to protect. They'll never understand the difference. That's why they'll lose. As if to emphasize the point, Mr. Buttons stood on his hind legs and saluted with one paw, his warren of warrior rabbits arrayed behind him like a furry honor guard. The most unlikely resistance force in galactic history was about to make its stand, and the fate of Earth would depend on the combination of alien technology, rabbit cunning, and human determination. Tom Miller looked at his daughter, the veterinarian, and their improbable army of enhanced rabbits led by a refugee alien cat. Well, he said with a slight smile, let's show these collectors what happens when they mess with a Nebraska farm. Galactic hunters. The collector's ship arrived at midnight, materializing above the Miller farm in a display that made the northern lights look like a cheap fireworks show. It hung in the air like a twisted cathedral of metal and light, its surface covered in writhing geometric patterns that hurt the eyes if you looked too long. Nova had prepared them for this moment. The farm's electronics had been modified with alien tech, creating a dampening field that made the property look abandoned from orbit. But they couldn't hide forever. The collectors had tracked their escaped experiment to this general area, and they would not leave empty-handed. The first scout drones descended like metallic wasps, their sensors probing the darkness. They found nothing unusual, just a typical terrestrial farm with its expected heat signatures and life readings. The rabbits had retreated to their carefully prepared warren, a maze of tunnels now reinforced with crystalline structures grown from Nova's shed fur. Sarah, Tom, and Doc Hansen waited in the barn, which Nova had transformed into a command center. Multiple contacts, Sarah whispered, watching the alien display Nova had integrated into her tablet. They're deploying ground units. The collectors themselves were exactly as Nova's shared memories had shown. Tall, spindly creatures in environmental suits that made them look like abstract sculptures of praying mantises. They moved with unsettling grace, their movements too precise to be natural. Biological enhancement specialists, Nova's translation device explained. They believe evolution is too slow, too inefficient. They accelerate it by force, creating weapons from living things. Tom gripped his modified shotgun, its shells now packed with a mixture of regular shot and crystalline fragments from Nova's pod. Well, they picked the wrong planet to harvest. The first direct contact came when a collection team approached the warren. They'd detected unusual energy readings and wanted samples. As they prepared their extraction equipment, Mr. Buttons put their carefully prepared plan into action. The warren erupted, not with fleeing rabbits, but with an orchestrated defense that would have made Sun Tzu proud. The first wave of rabbits emerged wearing crystalline armor that deflected the collector's stun beams. They moved in perfect formation, creating corridors that channeled the invaders exactly where Nova wanted them. Now, Sarah commanded through their makeshift communications network. The trap was sprung. The ground beneath the collector's feet suddenly liquefied. A trick Nova had taught the rabbits using vibrations at specific frequencies. As the aliens struggled, more rabbits emerged, carrying devices cobbled together from farm equipment and alien technology. They fired bursts of electromagnetic energy that scrambled the collector's environmental suits. But the invaders hadn't become the galaxy's premier biological weapons developers by being easily defeated. Their ship launched recovery pods, and soon the air was filled with combat drones. The battle for the Miller farm had truly begun. Nova revealed its true capabilities then. Its extra limbs unfolded into configurations that defied physics, generating force fields that protected their rabbit warriors. Its 3 eyes projected targeting data directly into the defenders' minds, allowing even the youngest kid to fire their jury-rigged weapons with deadly accuracy. They're adapting. Doc Hansen called out, monitoring the alien bioratings from his modified veterinary equipment. Their suits are reconfiguring to resist our attacks. The collector's leader, a being whose suit bore markings like ancient circuit boards, stepped forward. Its voice emerged as a series of harmonics that Nova's translator rendered into English. Prototype Nova 9, you have corrupted your programming. These primitives cannot comprehend the gift we offer: perfect evolution, controlled advancement. Surrender, and we will be merciful. Resist, and we will harvest this entire region for study. Nova's response came not in words but in action. It activated the final modifications it had made to the farm's infrastructure. Every piece of equipment, from the ancient tractor to Sarah's smartphone, began resonating at frequencies that formed a complex interference pattern. The collector's technology started to glitch, their perfect coordination faltering. You still don't understand, Nova's translator spoke. Evolution isn't about perfection. It's about adaptation. These primitives adapt faster than any species you've engineered because they choose to change, to cooperate, to protect each other. They don't need your guidance. To demonstrate the point, Mr. Buttons led a charge that could only be described as a lagomorphic blitzkrieg. Rabbits wielding electromagnetic pulse generators hopped through the chaos with stunning precision. They weren't just following orders or programming. They were innovating, adapting their tactics on the fly. The collector's leader raised its arms, preparing to signal its ship for a full military response. But before it could act, Tom Miller stepped forward, his modified shotgun humming with power. "Get off my farm," he said simply, and fired a burst of crystalline shrapnel that shattered the leader's command interface. The battle was far from over, but in that moment, something unprecedented happened. The collectors experienced something they had engineered out of their species eons ago: doubt. For the first time, they faced an enemy that wasn't just fighting back. It was evolving faster than they could adapt, not through their careful engineering, but through the chaotic, beautiful process of natural cooperation. And high above, their ship's sensors detected something even more troubling. Similar adaptations beginning to occur on farms and in communities across the globe. Earth wasn't just a collection of primitive species waiting to be harvested. It was becoming something the collectors had never encountered before, a world where evolution itself had evolved. Warren warriors. The collector's ship cast an artificial eclipse over the Nebraska farmland, its shadows spreading like spilled ink across the countryside. But the darkness revealed something the aliens hadn't expected. The Miller farm wasn't alone anymore. Lights flickered in precise patterns across neighboring properties, a network of resistance spreading faster than the collectors could track. Sarah Miller stood in the converted barn, coordinating their defense through Nova's enhanced communication system. "How did you do it?" she asked the alien cat. "How did you spread the adaptation so far?" Nova's three eyes sparkled with something close to mischief as the translator conveyed its response. "I didn't. Your internet did. Every cat video, every shared photo of rabbits, they carried fragments of the changes. Humans' love of sharing animal content became an evolutionary accelerant. The collectors never considered that cute could be a weapon. The farm had become a fortress, but not in any way the collectors could effectively counter. The rabbits had linked their warrens into an underground network that spanned multiple properties. Farmer Davy's horses now wore crystalline armor that could deflect energy weapons. The Anderson sisters' chicken coop had become a surveillance hub, with hens whose pecking patterns could decrypt alien transmissions. Mr. Buttons, now field commander of the largest rabbit army Earth had ever seen, coordinated their forces from a central chamber deep beneath the Miller farm. The warren walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, another gift from Nova's alien biology that allowed instantaneous communication throughout their network. "They're making their big push," Tom announced, watching multiple screens showing feed from their hybrid defense system. At least 50 hunter-killer drones, and something big coming down from the mothership. The something big turned out to be the collector's pride and joy. a massive biological processing unit, a walking factory designed to capture, analyze, and replicate useful genetic traits. It looked like a cross between a spider and a medical laboratory, its multiple legs ending in sampling equipment that could strip a creature down to its DNA in seconds. But the Earth forces had a surprise of their own. Doc Hanson's veterinary knowledge, combined with Nova's alien technology and the rabbit's unexpected tactical genius, had produced something unprecedented, a defense system that turned the planet's own biosphere into a weapon. The soil itself came alive, microorganisms responding to frequencies broadcast from modified farming equipment. Vines grew and moved with purpose, forming barriers that the collector's sensors couldn't penetrate. Even the air became their ally, as Nova's modifications to local pollen made it interfere with the invaders' electronic systems. They still don't understand. Nova transmitted as they watched the collector's forces struggle against this organic resistance. They see life as something to be controlled, improved through force. They've forgotten that the most successful species are the ones that learn to work together. The processing unit reached the edge of the Miller property, its sensors probing the defenses. That's when Mr. Buttons initiated their masterstroke. The ground erupted as hundreds of rabbits emerged in perfect formation, each wearing biomechanical enhancements that merged Nova's technology with their natural abilities. They moved like a fluid, their coordinated hopping creating wave patterns that disrupted the collector's targeting systems. But it wasn't just chaos. It was a dance, a perfect integration of instinct and innovation. The rabbits had learned to weaponize their own prey behaviors, turning their natural escape patterns into an offensive strategy that the collector's prediction algorithms couldn't handle. Sarah's modified tablet lit up with alerts. "They're trying to adapt," she reported. "Their processing unit is attempting to analyze and counter our tactics." Nova's eyes narrowed. Exactly as planned. The processing unit extended its sampling arrays, eager to collect data on these fascinating adaptations. But as it began its analysis, Mr. Buttons gave the signal. Every rabbit simultaneously thumped their back legs, creating a resonance pattern that Nova had carefully calculated. The crystalline structures throughout their Warren network amplified the vibration. The effect was instantaneous. The processing unit's sensitive equipment, designed to detect and analyze the subtlest genetic variations, was overwhelmed by the flood of contradictory data. Every rabbit presented slightly different adaptations, their natural variations enhanced by Nova's modifications. It wasn't just information overload, it was evolutionary chaos theory in action. The massive machine staggered, its legs tangling as its systems tried to process the impossible amount of data. The collectors had created their technology to identify and catalog discrete evolutionary advantages. They had never considered that evolution's greatest strength was its messiness, its ability to produce endless variations that together created something greater than the sum of their parts. "Now," Tom bellowed, and every defender on the farm acted in concert. The rabbits charged, their crystalline armor-refracting energy weapons. Doc Hanson's modified veterinary tools broadcast frequencies that disrupted the collector's environmental suits. Sarah's network of reprogrammed farm equipment created electromagnetic pulses that matched the rhythm of the rabbits' movements. And Nova, their unlikely teacher and ally, revealed its final modification. Its fur began to glow with increasing intensity, each strand becoming a conductor for a type of energy the collectors had never successfully quantified. The power of evolved, willing cooperation between species. The processing unit, the pride of the collector's fleet, began to break down, its perfect systems corrupted by the very thing it was designed to study. But this wasn't just a victory over a machine. It was proof of something the collectors had forgotten in their quest for perfection. True evolution wasn't about becoming the strongest or most efficient. It was about finding new ways to work together, to combine strengths and overcome weaknesses through cooperation rather than control. As the massive machine collapsed, its legs tangling in crystalline enhanced vegetation, Mr. Buttons stood upright on a rise overlooking the battlefield. Behind him, hundreds of rabbits posed in similar fashion, their armor gleaming in the strange light. It was a sight that would have been comical if it weren't so awe-inspiring. Earth's unlikeliest army, proving that sometimes the best defense against advanced technology was life itself, in all its beautiful, chaotic variety. Home among the stars. The collector's mothership hung motionless above the farm, its intricate patterns now dim and erratic. Inside their command center, the barn's rafters thrummed with the energy of Nova's modifications. Sarah Miller watched the alien vessel through a crystalline-enhanced telescope. What she saw made her smile. "They're arguing," she announced. The ship's external patterns, Nova had taught them, were actually a form of communication. Their perfect hierarchy is breaking down. Tom Miller sat on an old hay bale, his modified shotgun across his knees, watching Mr. Buttons coordinate the cleanup operation. The Rabbit commander had organized his troops into efficient teams, some dismantling the fallen processing unit while others reinforced their Warren network with salvage technology. "You know," Tom mused, "when your mother used to talk about building bridges between different cultures, I don't think this is quite what she had in mind." Doc Hansen looked up from his tablet, where he was documenting the unprecedented medical implications of their victory. "The scientific community is never going to believe this," he said, then chuckled. "Though I suppose that's about to change." Nova, who had been unusually quiet since the battle, suddenly raised its head. Its 3 eyes focused on the ship above, and its translator activated with urgency. "They're sending a transmission. Not to us, to their homeworld. They're requesting guidance." The response came within minutes. The mothership's patterns shifted dramatically, and a new voice boomed across their communication network. This wasn't the clinical tone of the collection teams. It carried weight, authority, and something else: curiosity. "We are the Council of Evolutionary Direction," the voice announced. "For millennia, we have guided the development of countless species, seeking perfection through controlled advancement. But today, we have witnessed something unprecedented." Nova's fur rippled with unexpected patterns, and Sarah realized it was responding to frequencies they couldn't perceive. The translator worked overtime to keep up with the complex exchange. "Prototype Nova 9. The Council continued. You were designed to infiltrate and analyze primitive species. Instead, you have demonstrated a form of evolution we had thought impossible, willing cooperation between distinct species, producing innovations our finest engineers could not predict." Mr. Buttons hopped forward, his crystalline armor glinting, and executed what could only be described as a formal bow. Behind him, hundreds of rabbits did the same, their synchronized movement creating ripples in Nova's sensor networks. "The humans have a saying," Nova transmitted back. "Life finds a way. But it's more than that. Life finds companions, allies, new paths forward that no single species could discover alone. Your perfect evolution is a dead end. True advancement comes from chaos, cooperation, and choice." The Council's response was unexpected. "We request an exchange of knowledge." Tom stood up, his weathered farmer's face stern. "If by exchange you mean taking samples or running tests." "No," the Council interrupted. "We propose something unprecedented. We will share our database of galactic species and their advancements. In return, we wish to study, through observation only, how your world's unique approach to cooperative evolution unfolds." Sarah looked at Nova, whose 3 eyes had widened in surprise. "They're serious," the alien cat transmitted. "This is not within their normal protocols." "Well," Doc Hansen said, "evolution isn't about following protocols, is it?" The implications were staggering. Access to the collector's knowledge could help solve countless Earth problems, from disease to environmental challenges. But more importantly, it would be a two-way exchange. Earth's primitive approach to species cooperation would influence galactic civilization. "There are conditions," Tom stated firmly. "No interference, no collections, and Nova stays here, not as your prototype, but as our friend." The Council's response carried a tone that the translator identified as amusement, Prototype Nova 9 ceased being our property the moment it chose to evolve beyond its programming. As for interference, we suspect we have more to learn from your chaos than you from our control. Mr. Buttons thumped his agreement, a signal that rippled through the Warren network and was picked up by the collector's sensors. The council's patterns shifted again. Fascinating. Even now, you develop new methods of communication. And so, on a small farm in Nebraska, humanity's first formal alien treaty was negotiated, not by governments or armies, but by a farmer, his daughter, a country vet, an alien cat, and an army of revolutionary rabbits. As the mothership prepared to depart, Nova turned to Sarah. "You realize," its translator conveyed, "this is just the beginning. Other species will come, seeking to understand what makes Earth special." Sarah watched Mr. Buttons organizing a new training program, teaching young rabbits how to integrate alien technology with their natural abilities. In the distance, farmers from neighboring properties were arriving, leading animals that showed signs of similar adaptations. "Let them come," she said. "We'll show them what happens when you let evolution take its natural course, when you let species choose to grow together instead of forcing them apart." Tom nodded, looking out over his farm that had become humanity's first embassy to the stars. "Your mother always said the best families are the ones you choose," he told Sarah. "Guess the same goes for species." Nova's 3 eyes gleamed with an expression that needed no translation. Pure joy at finding a true home, not among the stars where it was created, but on a small blue planet where a warren of rabbits and a family of farmers had taught it the real meaning of evolution. Mr. Buttons stood at attention, his troops arrayed behind him, as the collector's ship disappeared into the evening sky. The rabbit commander turned to his unlikely family, human, alien, and lapine, and gave a single, definitive thump. The message was clear in any language. This was just the beginning of Earth's great adventure among the stars. And they would face it together, not as separate species, but as proof that the greatest evolutionary leap of all is learning to celebrate their differences while discovering just how much they share.